faithful promises. Time and time again, you have proven you'll do just what you said. Though the storms may come and the winds may blow, I'll remain steadfast and let my heart learn when you speak a word, it will come to pass. Great is your faithfulness.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome again to the Unusual Pat podcast. If you're tuning in, please, as always, let us know you're here. Go ahead and like, share um, this link to your friends, your family members, so that way we can have everybody tune in and we can benefit from what we have to offer today. If you're here, just drop a comment so that way I can, say hi, say hello, say good morning, good afternoon, and tell us where you're tuning in from. All right. If you're live, go ahead and, drop a comment. Let us know you're here, like, share, and just indicate where you're tuning in from so that way we can recognize you. I like to, give praises to where it's due. So please let us know where you're tuning in from. And then that way we can go and get started. I hope everyone is doing great. I hope we're all healthy out there. Last week was rough for me. I had a little bit of a cold and I completely lost my voice, and I was worried if I would be able to, uh, come on live today and talk to you all. Please, if you're tuning in, go ahead and share this on your platforms. Let everybody know, because I'll be honest, what Dr. Dirwin has to offer today is very powerful, and I don't want anybody else to miss this opportunity. So just let us know where you're tuning in from, like, share, and we will get this thing started here in a second. Don't be shy. Drop a comment. Let us know if you're here or not. Hey, I see my brother Chi Gilbert. Good morning, brother, man. Thank you, bro. Thanks for tuning in. It's a pleasure to always, talk to you, and hope you're doing fine. Hope everything is good. That's my brother. Thanks for tuning in, bro. All right. I think Dr. Derwin is here, and I think it's exactly 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So I am going to bring her on stage. Hey, big bro Louis Reyes, my boy. Thanks for tuning in, brother. Hope you're doing great out there. Please go ahead and share this, because like I said, it's powerful, and I know Dr. Durin has a lot to offer today. She has a lot to talk about. Good morning, Megan Carswell, watching from North Carolina. Oh my goodness, I love North Carolina. I was stationed down there in 2014 to 18. All right. If you're tuning in, please go ahead and drop a comment, like, share with everybody. It is exactly 10:01 Pacific Standard Time. I'm going to bring Dr. Dirwin on stage, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Hey, good morning, Doc.
Good morning, Naday. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm so excited for this opportunity. And I like to do things formally. So before we go and get started, I would just like to welcome everyone that's currently tuning in on the platform. Again, this is the Unusual Pat podcast, where we come together just to learn from each other, just to share some positivity out there. I'm not here to tell everyone how to live their lives, but I'm just here to, share from my experience and have, Dr. Durwin provides some, expertise from the field of clinical psychology and counseling on what we'll be talking about today. So this is the beginning of season 2. And season 2 is really focused on relationships, but we want to start off with, our relationship with God first, our spiritual relationship, because personally, I feel like there's a connect there between our well-being, our, peace, love, and how we connect with each other. They say you cannot share love if you don't know love, if you not love yourself. So if you cannot share peace if you're not peace yourself. So I want to first of all say thank you so much, Dr. Durin, for accepting to be on the platform. I know you have a lot that you could have been doing right now, but you've chosen to be here on the Usual Path podcast. And I am so happy and I'm excited to have you on the platform. Dr. Duran, before you go ahead and tell everyone who you are and a whole lot about you, I just want to start by saying that Dr. Duran, uh, just getting to know you for the past couple of days, I've come to learn you do have a PhD in clinical psychology. You're currently licensed in the state of North Carolina, and you specialize in childhood trauma disorders, autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and trauma, basically combat trauma, sexual trauma, terminal illness, chronic pain, near death experiences. Dr. Duran's psychological perspective is based on Murray Bowen's family system theory, utilizing Murray Bowen's family system theory as a foundation. She has been working on a program which she'll be talking about here on the platform, and it is scripture psychology. Doctor, welcome to the welcome to the Usual Part podcast, and I'm excited to have you. If you don't mind, take this moment to just tell the audience who you are and everything you want to talk about.
Oh, thank you so much for this opportunity to kind of share my perspective with your viewers and for such a positive introduction. I think since we're talking about Bowen's family systems theory,
Right.
maybe an interesting fact about myself that influenced my work as a psychologist started in childhood. So I think I'd like to share a story from childhood. So my mom's career really shaped my clinical perspective from a young age. So specifically when I was little, my mom rescued thoroughbred racehorses off the racetrack.
Right.
And these horses at the time would be severely injured and a lot of pain. They were dangerous. They were marked for euthanization, and they would call my mom and they say, "Hey, we have a horse. It's going to be euthanized, or can you take it?" My mom would go. She'd bring these horses home, and what I didn't realize in that moment as a child is just the animal behaviorist my mother was, right? And so she would rehabilitate these horses who were very dangerous through communication of her body language, like how important is our relationship, and being able to kind of build this trust. And so that I would mimic. I didn't realize it as a child, but when we're so interconnected in our relationship to others, our family system, she was teaching me how not just to do that with animals, but also to do that with people. So I often have a very different perspective on body language than others. Other people might see it like, "Ooh, this person might attack me." And I think if I change my body language, we can have a different relationship. And so this kind of gave me a unique perspective on human behavior, which I think was really pivotal as I didn't know it then because I went on to do a lot of other things before I became a psychologist. But I think my family system, that interconnectedness really is unique in my psychological perspective. So
Sounds
yeah, that's kind of like me, a little taste of how family systems theory influences each of us.
Got you, got you. Thank you so much, Doc. I really appreciate that because I mean, like I said, I am a fan of connection, positivity, and just trying to learn from each other. And I do believe in the relationships. I believe that relationship is very powerful.
Yeah.
Like I said the other time, I think that the definition for me of a family and how we can compare family to in society, I said the family is to society as a cell is to a living organism because the family is, where it all starts. That's where we start learning how to connect with each other. And you come to see that most of the times, people that have a healthy relationship, they always end up having that great social currency. They tend to heal better. They tend to have that support system. They tend, when they go through tough times, they have somebody to connect to. So that is why when we were getting ready, I was getting ready to begin this session on relationships. I thought it wise to start looking back and seeing how human behavior has changed over a couple of years. With time, I know that human behavior has really changed drastically if we go back, in time. And this is not something new. It happens all the time, with a change in something. When something happened globally, or in nations, there's always that shift in human behavior. So the reason that, like I was telling you before, that made me pick this topic, our relationship with God, the foundation of every healthy relationship, is because, I value the essence of a healthy relationship. I know what it does for us. I know what it does for us as far as helping us achieving our goals, helping us, with that social currency that I was talking about. And I know that this is very important. But why is it that lately, there's been a lots of, issues with, human beings, and how, we're being stressed out and what's going on. And this is my assessment, and I may be wrong, Doc. So I think with the innovation of information technology, and I don't want to get too crazy on that, and with the fact that from a global standpoint, there's this, change in power leadership structures now, where all this confusion is causing a ripple effect, where it's affecting nations, affecting communities, and now, the economy is not where it's supposed to be. So what does that do to our family structures? Now mom and dad has to go to work for longer hours, and the kids are not being, taken care of by anybody. Relationship, we don't have time to spend time together and really bond. So the reason why this topic is very important to me is because I just want, personally, when I go through tough times and when things around me are happening and I cannot control what's happening around me, I boil it down to who I believe I identify to, and that is God. I focus on my relationship with God because I believe God has the manual to, every human being. And I believe, believing in God sets the norm in society. So what do you have to say as far as my assessment, as far as, how, when things are going chaotic, our relationship with God, how does that affect, the whole family dynamics?
You gave me so many different pieces in that.
Yes.
So first is
Yeah.
what I heard was you have a real interest in healthy relationships,
Yes.
right? And so how do we have a healthy relationship?
Hmm.
You also talked about how the ripple effect of things happening economically,
Right.
nationally,
Right.
globally
Right.
actually impact us, right?
Yes. Yes.
And then you talked about you look to God kind of to set a norm for you, kind of like your true north. Okay,
Yes.
so just let's try to unpack some of that, okay?
Yes. Yes.
So why that's all cool and how you brought it up is
Yeah.
because if you understand Bowen's family systems theory, it
Right.
is this idea that we're existing in a set of systems. All right. And so you use the word ripple effect, and I love it because that gives me a platform, right? So now I can talk, and I can talk hours. We could have a lecture for 16 weeks, but
Please.
for our beautiful hour, it's kind of like that ripple effect when there is a pebble dropped in water and a
Mhm.
set of rings come out, and you beautifully already you intuitively know it. So when we say and we talk about family systems theory, there's something innate in us that speaks to it. So in that ripple, if you were looking at Bowen's family system, the center ring is you and your relationship with your immediate family. And for the sake of today, we'll call it the nuclear family, right? So it's an
Gotcha.
old definition, but it's two parents and the siblings together, the nuclear family.
Right.
And then you talked about the next set of influences upon this family, okay? And that is the social systems, right? So that could be school, it could be church, could be government, could be economics, could be global. Those things ripple through and impact the family. Now, Bowen called the nuclear family, in his mind, is this healthy family relationship you talked about.
Mhm.
So we can kind of call those the same. So a healthy family, Bowen called well differentiated. It's a psychological term, but it means exactly the same thing. Okay.
Right.
He called an unhealthy family undifferentiated. What did that mean? A well differentiated family is flexible and adaptable to the stresses of those other ripples in the system, the social system.
Right.
They grow a human being. That's not the right word. We're not flowers, but they develop a human being
Yeah.
to be autonomous, a person who can use their intellectual process to make decisions and not be so emotionally reactive to the stress that might be caused. Like, what did you talk about? You talked about things happening nationally, globally, and economically. So that this family system has someone that we call differentiation of self. So they see their self within their family and they see their family. When they're undifferentiated, they're super interconnected. There is
Right.
emotional reactivity happening to any of those changes. So an economic crisis isn't something, hey, let's sit down and we're gonna work that out in a healthy manner. It's, oh my God, it's an economic crisis. You get the difference?
Right. Right.
So now let's take it even one step further, because you and I share this beautiful, loving thought of God. Our relationship with God is everything. I likened it to the true north, the way that you described it. But
Right.
in the end, what God is in psychology is what we call a constant. No matter what my system does around me, no matter how much my system falls, I have a true constant. I have a set of beliefs in God, and I have a set of beliefs in what happens to me, the person, and this invisible force, right? So the body makes visible the invisible. As I talk to you, something is thinking, something is connecting with you, your viewers, and whomever. I like to call it a soul. That's
Mm.
my word for it. Some people call it spirit. It doesn't
Right.
matter. In the end, we're talking about something invisible. Our body makes visible the invisible.
Right.
God is invisible. He comes down as Jesus. He makes the invisible visible. We share something and he's a constant. When you have this with that healthy family system,
Right.
you have a double positive. Does that make sense? A
Yes. Yes.
well-differentiated family, a healthy family with no religion is still strong.
Right.
It's still able to handle some of the stress of life, right?
Right.
But if you tip those outer rings, if your ripples become tsunami waves, when the economic crisis is a Great Depression, when the global crisis is a world war,
Right.
if you don't have more than just that one strength, you might not make it through. So
Mm.
God, your belief in God, empirically has been proven. A belief in God is increases psychological well-being. So now you have a double positive. And I
Right.
don't know if I got lost in there a bit.
No. 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 I
Bring
think you.
me in.
No. No. You hit the nail right on the spot, man. Because I think what I was saying, and you said it right, is with all these things happening from outside that social structure, now it's affecting the family structure, which affects
Right.
us as individuals.
Exactly.
And it is crazy because like I said, I have all this concepts in my mind. I know these things from my own practical experiences, but one thing I don't have is that psychological background, that clinical standpoint, where you come in there and you're providing that expertise and kind of shaping my thoughts. Because I, for one, growing up, the only reason why I am here today is because of my on and on spiritual life. I say that not to brag about it, but I say it and I just credit everything to God. Because if I, at a very young age, didn't have a mom that brought us to church every Sunday, and and just be so close to God, I would not be sitting here, being alive today, and, be happy amidst everything, having a beautiful family, been married for about 10, 11 years, have three boys, and achieving what I have achieved. Not to brag about anything that I've achieved, right? Giving that glory to God. I know peace today because of my spirituality. The few times I turn around and pray to God and ask Him for, strength, wisdom, and just resiliency, I can give everything that I've achieved credit to what God has done to me. Because, like I said, the other episodes I've talked about my personal story and how I came up. And I hate to, bring up my story, because it's always like, oh, you're trying to say you had it worse than me. That's not the point. But everything I'm saying is just a testament of what I've been through and what I've experienced in my personal life. I am not perfect. I'm not the most, I am a sinner. I do make mistakes, but every time whenever I'm going through a tough time, I have come to realize that just going to God in prayers, asking Him for specific requirements, He's been able to give those things to me. We're talking about just peace, love, and just that connection with the people next to me and all that stuff. So as I was getting ready for this topic, ma'am, I was just reading, reading my Bible, and I came across Psalms 127 that reads, "Except the Lord build the house, they labor in they labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman walketh but in vain." Another text that kind of, caught my eyes was Romans 8:6 that reads, For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. So this to me just tells me that God is that author of peace, and drawing close to our spirituality is the essence of us living that peaceful, fulfilled, happy lifestyle. So I don't know if you can explain it any further as far as that correlation between our spirituality and our well-being and our relationship with one another. I know you kind of touched on it earlier, but if you don't mind, just throw some more light if there's any clinical backing or in your professional experience, if there's a correlation between all that.
Again, I love talking with you because you give me
Right.
so many different avenues. And so I want to try to be, I can't help it. So of
Very
course,
good.
what I created is something called, I mean, it's only in my private practice. It's not something you can find out there, but I call it scriptural psychology treatment, right? And
Right.
it is this idea that sometimes we can get caught down in the weeds over one scripture in which we think God is not fulfilling. I often hear, and this is just an example, so I often hear individuals who refer to scripture of, if I have the faith of a mustard seed, then I can move a mountain. And they feel like if they prayed for a loved one who was close to death, often, I see it with parents losing a child to cancer. And I'm talking little children. So they might have had great religious background, but they're suddenly in a struggle with their faith, right?
Right.
And so they're having a very skewed, one-sided conversation that I had so much faith. Why didn't God answer my prayer? And so we have to come and we have to use other scripture. We have to get what we call a Christ-centered perspective on something. The first thing that we have to understand, I think, in situations like that is, in what way is our soul returning to God, not healing? Right? Like, isn't that the ultimate goal? So in what way first is your prayer actually not answered? But you brought up Psalms 127, right?
Right.
Except the Lord build the house. Like, a lot of people just focus on that because why? They labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city. The watchman waketh but in vain. So what is in that we're really trying to understand? I mean, in my practice, I think it speaks to that we have to recognize there is a dependence on God. In our suffrage, if you're going to suffer so much that eventually, even if you feel very independent and God is a piece of your life, you're going to suddenly depend on God in a moment like that, right? And that you have to value the family and trust in God's providence. Trusting God's providence, I think, means acknowledging nothing happens without his will.
Right.
So even if prayers go unanswered in that. And I think you then talked about, well, I guess saying just basically without God's involvement, our efforts are ultimately in vain. But Romans I use that one so much because a lot of individuals come to me with problems with impulsive behaviors.
Right.
So they know what's right, but they impulsively act. Romans 8:6 speaks to this. Because when the flesh wants what the flesh wants, and we do not have peace in our mind,
Right.
not centering ourselves on God and his will, which he completely gives us a narrative on, then we tend to have, problems with the flesh, whether it's lust, pride, greed, right? And you can always mimic you can bring it to the 3 temptations Christ went through.
Right.
This is the body without spirit. So I'm not sure, did I answer your question in that? Because I'm talking about, the spiritual mindedness and how it has to be aligned with our thoughts, that there has to be a desire for God's spirit to be in control of the body, the flesh, because the body is always seeking pleasure.
Right.
It's impulsive. And it's avoiding pain. So that'd be emotional pain, physical pain. And the spirit is saying, I'm seeking God.
Yes.
And to do that, I'm actually going to have to challenge you, body, and
Right.
I'm going to have to quiet your flesh desires, and you're going to have to go through that suffrage and still come out on top.
Oh man.
Right?
Oh man.
Kind of thing.
That's very powerful and unique in a sense, because I think I am a big fan of mental health. I'm a big fan of mental health. I believe in
Me too.
yes. I say that, because most of the times my approach in life can kind of make people feel like I don't believe in a my concept in life is that I, for some reason, it's like I push towards, more suffering, because I've seen the benefit of what suffering does to my soul and my spirit. So I always tell people, like, it's in a sense that I push myself to the point of friction, because, and it didn't come just, like right now. It came after so many years of going through a lot in life, near death situations, just crazy experiences that, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go into that. But I know whenever I went through that in the beginning,
Mhm.
I'm always like, God, do you even exist? Like when I started my early days, like, God, if you do exist, I've been a good person. My parents have been good. We try to pray to you. We grew up suffering and everything like that. Why are you still doing this to me? Do you even exist? I've questioned him before. But the times where I've realized, oh, he is setting me in this situation for me to grow character, grow strength, to prepare me for something that's coming forward in the future. So with time, I kind of grow that mindset where it's like, man, let me go through this pain, because I know what's ahead of me. It's going to be powerful. So I think what you explained is very powerful, because most of the times when I talk to people and I kind of share my experience, we're so caught up in the now, like, okay, I'm going through this, why it didn't supposed to happen, and things like that. Can I even believe in God? Like, what is that going to do to me? Like, okay, if God really loved me and my family, I've been praying, but why didn't my wife do this to me? And that's why we're not talking to each other, blah blah blah. But instead of focusing and being that team and seeing a problem, being the team against that problem, people don't seem to build resiliency and go past that. What do you have to say?
Whew. Okay.
Yeah.
So much, of course.
Yes, please.
Um, I can sum up something you said in there with two words that I often utilize and actually myself live. And that is, I think that so I'm going to give some psychological terms to some of the things that you talked about.
Right.
One of the psychological terms I'd like to introduce is something called positive religious coping. So not only have you kind of discussed in a way, as a psychologist, I can see that you're a well-differentiated person, meaning you're autonomous.
Mm,
Okay.
right.
You have a healthy relationship to yourself.
Yes.
You then told me I have that family is so important to you. You described your mother, things of this nature, right?
Right.
So now I hear, and your mother did a few very beautiful things, right? She
Mhm.
brought positive religious coping into your family unit. What did that look like? You said, I'm thankful that my mom took us to church every Sunday.
Right.
I'm thankful for prayer, right? So those are there are three, there empirical research. So this means that when psychologists go out and do science and they study things and they're looking for anything that correlates to something support wise that we could use for the mass, for everybody, right? There are three things that continuously come up about positive religious coping. And that is one's belief in God. The second is attending church. And the third is practicing prayer. So not just knowing prayer, but actually putting it into practice.
Right.
Those three things individually correlate or mediate. I don't remember if it's a mediation or correlation, but that doesn't matter here.
Yeah.
Only if I was talking to another psychologist when I don't care.
No,
But anyways, they show that there's an increased psychological well-being individually. So imagine the possibility of the increase in psychological well-being if all three exist, which you've already told me they did in your life.
Right.
So what we hear is that as you face challenges in your life, and you naturally did what a lot of us do, which is question God about his existence. God is strong enough. He can handle that. He can bear the weight of our questions on testing if he exists or not. We can't judge ourselves there.
Right.
You came to what I always term challenge accepted. In my suffrage, in my life, I literally cannot predict tomorrow, but here's what I've got. Whatever it is, challenge accepted. So this is really a powerful thing. And it really speaks to how a well-differentiated family that you had that taught positive religious coping, not negative. There is negative religious coping because there's always two sides to any coin. Right. So people can have religious coping skills that are negative, such as thinking that my suffrage is punishment.
Right.
Right. Instead of a challenge. And so, things of this nature. So you were talking about peace, love, and connection. And if I think that, is it okay for me to share how scriptural psychology treatment that I developed actually, like, a narrative is so important to us?
Please.
Okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, please. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so because we're talking about a healthy relationship with God,
right,
and that has powerful implications for our psychological well-being. But I think I didn't understand it half as much until COVID happened. So let me share how I even started to develop scriptural psychology treatment. So during COVID, my grandmother had to face a set of challenges being older regarding her mortality in that moment. I mean, of course, older people might think about it, but this changed things for all of us, right?
Right.
So she was discussing with my aunt, because my aunt was her healthcare advocate, what she wanted to happen if she was placed on a ventilator. So my aunt, she's a retired nurse. She describes to my grandmother that it's painful to be on a machine, that they had research that showed if people didn't make improvements in her age group by 3 weeks, that, it was a very small chance of recovery, and that at 5 weeks, it was almost nil. But my grandmother was trying to say to her, leave me on the machine. And my aunt's like, this is the beginning of COVID, mind you. We don't have enough machines, right? I was actually in training, and they're trying to help me learn how to help people make a decision about pulling a person off between the 3rd and 5th week because of the ventilator, because we might be able to save the person over there for the person that we know now has very little chance.
Right.
So they're having that conversation. I don't know it, right? I'm trying to learn about it. And so basically they agree to disagree. My grandmother is not a person who raises her voice. She doesn't argue.
Yeah.
She agrees to disagree, and she gets off the phone with my aunt. So that's happening. She calls me, and she, kind of tells me what I told you. And then now I can't recall my grandmother's exact words.
Right.
But it went something like this. So, okay. So she calls me, and she asks me to make a promise to her. And she asked that if that scenario played out, that I would come to her defense, and that I would stop the doctors from pulling her off a ventilator. She told me that she fully understood that it might be extremely painful for her to be on it. She was aware that she, in fact, could live like years on a ventilator in horrific pain. But it didn't matter. My job was to stop anyone from taking her off the machines at all costs. And so, of course you go, well, why? Why do you, what is this?
Right.
So then she described, she went on, she goes, no, I don't care. She was so funny. She's like, I don't care if you have to throw yourself on my body. I don't care if you fight the medical staff. She was like, I don't care if you go to jail. That's the grandmother.
Oh,
but she was trying to really send me a message that maybe
Right.
I might not get. But this is where she just blew my mind, because I'm like, okay, why?
Right.
Please, the psychologist in me needs to know, what is this? So she said something like, she calls me Bethy. She goes, Bethy, if our good Lord so determines that I'm to suffer every day for 5 years on a ventilator, then you are not to steal from me my suffrage, which only brings me closer to understanding Jesus's suffrage on the cross. And what did she say? She felt like it would help perfect her soul so that she would be worthy of entering heaven. And that it was his decision to call her home and end the suffrage. But this was the thing that blew my mind. Okay. She goes, you are to come into my hospital room every day. You are to offer up my suffrage to the Lord for reparation of my sins, or reparation of your sins, because who knows how you lived your life. That was funny. And then she goes, maybe someone in the family suffering with addiction.
Yes.
Ask God for a miracle to take that addiction from them, or this or that. And so what I learned in this moment was, you don't waste a second of that suffrage. Do not look at it as punishment or something you just have to go through. It's not just a challenge. My grandmother taught me that Jesus' death on the cross was teaching us one very pivotal thing that we fail to teach, I think, a lot. And that is that it's actually a gift. It's a power card against evil. And you can offer it up for the good of many. And you can do that daily. So this is how scriptural psychology got its birth, because she blew my mind. Like, I did not see it that way. I thought he was saying, yeah, you're going to have to suffer. But she was saying, no, did you hear him at the end, Elizabeth? He offered it up and it did something. You too can do, all of us can do this. And so God is not just a constant. He is a way of improving not just the spirit, but we can literally improve each other. And so this ripples effects through our relationship to others, right? Because you might not know it, but today I might offer up my suffrage for you and your family. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so we have ripples, private ripples almost, that nobody can steal from us. And so as much suffering as evil wants to throw at you, you can go, okay, great, thanks. I now have a powerful tool I can use against you. And all
right.
So there's that. I don't know if I got on a tangent.
No, you're good. That was powerful, ma'am. And if you have more, you can throw into, because I really like that approach, and I don't want to keep on talking. That is very powerful. And if you feel like there's more, I would like to hear about.
I mean, I guess if I were to try to sum it up, she was saying it's a powerful chance to humbly and like earnestly request God's grace. And what are those? Mercy, healing, forgiveness, salvation. Right? And so she was kind of, she was telling us that maintaining a healthy relationship with God is as if, Christ is in you. And this suffrage is part of how he is going to help and heal and bring deeper understanding to you, the person, the soul, and help in relationships with others, bring us up.
Gotcha.
So, to reduce pain, both mental pain, physical pain, you could do it for anything. We constantly go into these internal struggles. The body, again, like I said, it wants to avoid pain, but the spirit is willing. When God is agonizing in the garden, he's telling his disciples, stay awake and pray with me. Right? Because the spirit is willing, but the body is weak. This is us. Our body naturally, of course, because it's nerve endings, wants to avoid pain. Yes. And of course, the brain has the most. So mental pain is just as powerful as physical pain. So it's trying to avoid, and it seeks pleasure. Here's where that sinful lust of the flesh can come into it. And that can be addiction. I mean, it's not always sexual. People usually, when I say that, they think sexual. I'm like, well, addiction is the same thing. The body's craving something because it's escaping pain. In that case, it's escaping mental pain, right?
Yes.
So this internal struggle between the spirit, which is of God, and it's our invisible force, with our body, which makes the invisible visible. This internal struggle, the only way to kind of really cope when it gets out of control, when the stress of life is just so bad, as you're hoping you were raised by a family that raised an autonomous person, and that your relationships with people and others remain in that autonomous, healthy way.
Right.
And then, of course, the truest center of that relationship is your belief and understanding in God, because when all the rest fail, that is a constant.
Nice.
Okay, I'm sorry. So
No, you good. You good. That's very powerful. No, you you good, dog. You good, dog. What you said is something, like I said, I have all these beliefs and things that I think about and I think is true, but having you really back in, not like I want validation, but I need something from a I would say something from a clinical or practical standpoint that tells me, okay, are your thoughts messed up or not? Because I've always thought that we're just like a tree, like a tree that has branches, leaves, and all that stuff. And what that tree goes through, like depending on the season, sometimes that tree would shed its leaves, when it's stormy or during harsh, temperatures. So that way it stops, losing water and all that stuff. But what happens that the tree, for it to survive, it keeps on, growing its root down, in the ground, so that way it can obtain nutrients and things like that. And I've always related that to when it's hard out there, when it's stormy, when it's crazy around you, what is there to keep you going? What is there to be your source of peace, love, energy? I've always equated that to, my spirituality. And being in the military, there were things that I've done that I do now that is very normal, that the couple of years ago before I joined, if you asked me to do it, I would tell you you're out of your mind. But that is because I've simulated, we simulate stressors in controllable amounts where it pushes you to get into your spirit. Because sometimes, like, just think, for instance, before you join, who is to think that you will put, maybe like 80 pounds or 70 pounds on your back and you hike for 20 miles, whatever? Like, are you out of your mind? People be like, no, that's crazy. But throughout that process of doing something like that, you are you zone in and you go deep into your spirit and you're internal. And after you accomplish something like that, it just makes it normal the next time. And it makes the type of experiences very easy, and it makes you resilient and things like that. So sometimes I go crazy, like, oh, you can do it, you can do this. And when I motivate and push people, they feel like I don't believe that they're breakable, but I just think that we are tougher. We are so tough than we think we are, because we live so much in the body and we don't really go into the spirit. And that is our true identity. We always like, oh, my leg hurts, or I'm gonna die right now, let me just give up. But if you dig deep and peel back that onion and go into your core, what your identity is, you'll really come to understand that you can resist anything and you can keep on building healthy relationships around you. Because the reason why this is important is because hurt people hurt people. If you are hurt, you cannot be a good mother or father. You can't raise your kids right. So you
Right.
always be, angry, aggressive, and all that stuff around your kids, around people around you. So if you are not happy from within, then what is to say that you build healthy relationships around you? So, dog, that was very powerful.
I would say not always, right? So
Right.
I believe in the power of growth. So an
Okay.
individual might be, as you described, hurting others because maybe they had that undifferentiated family system was telling you about, that Bowen
Right.
kind of talks about. But at some point they might have an internal reflection. Those are those pivotal moments in psychology that we love. Those are like, ooh, someone brought me a little nugget. They brought me the seed you talked about of the tree, and I can't wait to plant this particular seed, right?
Right.
And so there were, oh God, so many things went through my mind. I should have wrote them down because
No, you get.
um I think when you first started, you were talking about the scenario of a tree and what it goes through on the outside surface, right?
Right.
And so I think we have, you get to, a tree has a life force just like we do, right? You can actually do a lot of damage to the tree so long as the center life force of that tree, keeps going. It will recover. And the other thing great about a tree, kind of like us, is that when we put roots out, maybe that's our family as we expand ourselves. Even when we leave, right? new trees pop up. So
Yeah.
I kind of liked your analogy. I got it stuck in it. I'm sorry. What else did you brought up? I forgot. It was something that you
No,
said.
I brought up something as far as, the pain that we go through. Like, for instance, I didn't really expand into it, but there's always something about people that suffer together. Like for us in the military, we have this weird relationship where we're always together. We're always, because the things that we go through, it's sometimes you see a grown adult crying in tears next to you, and you kind of in that moment like, what is wrong with you? But then after that, you like, we just connect better because we're always suffering. I would say not always, but we do suffer together. So
Right. I guess that's that tough times.
yeah,
They can make or break us.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And again, depending on if you're having healthy relationship with the self, healthy relationships with others, and
right,
then if you have some of these positive religious coping, you are much more likely to be the one that's going to make it. So I guess it's valid to say that overcoming adversity can trigger personal growth. Um, when a person is lacking that interconnectedness, as we've kind of talked a lot about it in
right.
their relationships between themselves, or inside yourself, are you really connected to your body with the spirit? So like this, I have seen people who exercise and take incredible care of their body who
Mm,
are completely miserable. And this is the person who actually is not feeding the soul, the spirit within a person, the thinking person, the invisible piece of us. So they might avoid their actual problems. They might emotionally overreact to problems rather than rational thinking, like thinking through a tough situation. And their avoidance might literally be, well, I'm just going to keep taking care of my body, exercise, right?
mm,
But they haven't taken care of the spirit. The spirit has brought to them an internal conflict, whatever that might be. For everybody, it's different. I tend to work with individuals of trauma, so it's pretty severe,
right.
right? Um, and so the other thing you're kind of talking about is suffering together. It is, and I guess the question would arise, like, does that help us build better connections?
Right, right.
Well, I hate to keep working on Owen's family system theory, but
No, you good.
again, it depends on that. Do I have a differentiation of self? Am I a healthy relationship with me versus healthy relationships with others? Right? Have
Mm,
you ever noticed there are people who literally push away from the group, who withdraw from the group?
yes.
Right? So sometimes, even though you're suffering as a group, even if we took like a platoon,
Right.
well, you're in the Navy. I
And
guess
I relate. I can relate to it.
you can relate to me.
I'm with the Marines right now, so yes.
Oh, okay. So yeah. So suffering together in the moment might bring people very, very connected because it's do or die
Mm,
in a situation like that.
right.
However, individuals who are not well differentiated and might be calling into question their relationship spiritually with God, um, they will not remain connected.
Mm,
And it is extremely important for people to be aware of each other, because as a person starts to cut their ties, in psychology, this is so important. In my first interview with a person, I am almost hyper focused on a person's relationship to others, because depending on how unconnected they are, already speaks to the psychologist about how possibly suicidal
mm,
is this person. So that's how important our relationships and remaining connected to others is. So, one of the greatest things, there are two. So, everyone always asks me if there's research that backs up what I'm saying, right?
right.
So, to know a psychologist is to know they do not talk unless it was from research. Like that's my basis, my grounding of what I want to say.
Right.
So, as you're a military person, I'm thinking maybe a lot of your viewers might also share military experiences. So, when it comes to the government, the VA, studying religious and spirituality and suicidality in veterans, there is a really great source for research.
Mm,
Um, And I mean, I refer to it as MyREC. And MyREC, oh gosh, I got to think of what that stands for. Oh goodness. Um, let me see if I can find. I think it stands for like mental illness, research, education, and clinical centers or something like this.
That's fine.
It's MIRECC. It's the VA MyREC. It's the Mid-Atlantic one. They happen to be the ones right now very focused on our religiosity and what's the benefits and what aren't. So, that's kind of important, because that's when we talk about the lacking of interconnectedness in psychology.
Right.
So as a person breaks away from the group, is not involving themselves in your groups, this is a person that probably needs a lot more help than others are getting. They might be very quiet and they might look very put together. However, this is important to me in checking for a person's psychological well-being. We are social creatures. We are social creatures. And so why would a person who's very hurt walk away from social connectedness? Because if you're considering leaving by your, suicide, you start to sever these relationships so that you think you're tricking yourself that I won't hurt people. Right? Other times, it could be another reason, but it's just as important. They might be struggling with emotional reactivity, not being suicidal at all, but can't control their impulsive anger around others. So then they do it for protection. That is also important because that might be phase 1, but in psychology, we know the next phase is I'm broken. And without a very strong positive religious coping attribute to that person, they are very likely to talk themselves in what I call Alice's rabbit hole and go have dinner with the Mad Hatter.
Right.
Right? Because they're not talking to anybody else. There is nobody to argue against those thoughts. People will be better off without me. Get it?
Yes.
So this is the importance of our relationship. When we have a good, strong belief in God, what is one of the major tenets of God? You cannot go to heaven if you do that. So it's very powerful.
Yeah.
Very protective. It's one of the assumptions you're making by having a belief in God. People might then have internal conflict, like, why not? How do we know that? Again, I use scriptural psychology to be very clear on how we know that. I also refer people to read a few books on near-death experiences. One of them would be the psychiatrist Georgie Ritchie. It's called Return to Tomorrow or Return from Tomorrow. I don't remember which. Do I have the book? Give me a second.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
No, that's fine.
Sorry, but it's either Return to Tomorrow or Return from Tomorrow. But it's so this, I bring it up. He was in basic training, I think, for the Army in World War II. He gets double pneumonia and he actually dies for 9 minutes. The book is him telling his story through an author. Her name was Elizabeth. That was funny. Anyways, about what happened in those 9 minutes, because he meets Jesus and he shows him things.
Right.
And so I will have patients who are kind of in that inner struggle. I will have them read books like that. And there are many of them. And then, of course, my own, as a psychologist, I can't tell you, I've had at least over 100 patients or more who tell me near-death experiences. There were only 3 stories. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. I met my family members. It was like a reunion. I met God. Or it was horrific. And there are 2 types of people in this one. Absolutely horrible, bad things going on.
Yeah.
Scared me straight. Can't wait to relive my life differently. Or I do have a few that liked it. That's always never not a fun. I have a hard time sitting in that one, but I do it.
Yeah.
And then there's the other one. There was nothing, but it was completely black. It was blank, but I had all of my thoughts and I escaped none of my feelings. And so that's kind of powerful, isn't it?
It is. When you were saying that, Doc, gave me chills because without saying a whole lot, personally, maybe not, I don't feel comfortable expressing that right now, but I have been in a situation where at that point in time, I thought I was not gonna make it. All
Mhm.
right. So that experience is something that you cannot explain it. And that was when I think was when I've always been praying. Like I said, I've always tried to build that relationship with God. But that was the definition of, oh, God is alive. Because when
Right.
I was in the heat of the moment, and I know for sure I was not gonna make it in this situation, at that point in time, I just felt like the most peace in my life. I wasn't scared. I was not panicking or anything like that. But I just realized that I just bowed my head down, and it just felt like everything was just clear, quiet, even though it was chaotic, but everything was clear, quiet. And all I saw was that I just had that internal peace. And the only thing I was begging for was like, let me find any sin in me to confess before I go to heaven. So
Mm.
it just felt different. And of course, it didn't happen. Thank God I'm here today. But that short experience, it felt like it was an hour long, but it was just a span of, I guess, a few seconds. But I remember myself going through the prayer of salvation, going through confession, and just being happily, finally meeting God or Jesus in a sense. So I have experienced that, and I do know of people that have shared some, crazy stories with me. And I say crazy, not, for the
Yeah, I get
little
it. I'm
little
not
meaning.
judging that word.
Right, right. So we've shared those experience, and that is when you come to realize that you don't think our relationship with God is important until you become close to that situation, and you don't really understand how important our relationship with God is, you know until you really come to seek him and find him and see how that changes not only your life, but it helps shape your goals. It helps build discipline in you. It just helps
Yeah.
keep you going and keeps you pushing forward, and it helps you just having that positive spirit around people, even though they may be like everything is bad with society, all that stuff. You always bring in that sense of positivity, that energy. Is like, hey, it could be worse. So Dr. Duran, is here for the first time on the platform. And I just want to say, if you're watching right now, and if you have any questions, because I think we're coming up on our hour mark, and I don't want our audience to lose this opportunity. If you have any questions whatsoever, please, I don't know when we'll be able to have her again on the platform, but just please drop your comments, questions, concerns that you may have, so that way we may hear from the subject matter expert before she leaves. All right. While we wait for comments, please, if you have a question, I see the comments, but if you have any questions, go ahead and drop it here so that way the doc can answer before she leaves. I see Louis Reyes. Yes, sir. God is good. Amen, brother. Uh, Marco Million. We are all mini gods. Yes, I can
He's
attest.
right. We are literally born to become saints, right?
Yes.
We are born for sainthood.
Right.
Does that make sense? Yeah, he is. I love that one.
No, that's true, because I think most of the times, and people always ask me, going and growing up in life, people always ask me, how come you always achieve what you want to achieve? How come you always, if you set your mind on something, you get it? I always make one prayer to myself, dog, is I believe God created me out of his image, and the spirit that is in me is his. So anything that I say, it's going to manifest, and everything that I've put my mind on it and I pray to God, not making this up, always come to happen. And that's just been that's been the reason behind, like I said when we started, why I'm where I'm at today. Haven't made it yet. I am not a millionaire. I have no money, but I'm happy. I'm doing good. So
Yeah, we are of God. That spirit inside us, the reason why when you get into your belief in God is so
right,
powerful is because it resonates naturally with who we are. Often people coming to me are in conflict, maybe with this idea that that science and God cannot coexist in our modern society, as if science is disproving the existence of God. And so I spend an awful lot of time helping people positively correlate their experiences because of this invisible force. Does that make sense? And
right,
so we spend an awful lot of time there's a lot of empirical research that is science. Science is constantly informing us that there are three things that increase psychological well-being, and you can't unprove that. A belief in God, right? Attending church, practicing prayer. Individually, they increase psychological well-being. Together, they're an incredible force for an individual, to have healthy relationships with self, others, and be able to handle the natural suffrage, because that's what you were talking about. How much suffrage can we get? We can get so much suffrage, we are on the brink of death. And think about it. How much force does it take to actually separate the spirit from the body? Every bit of the body actually has to die before it actually leaves. So these things are highly connected, and that is of God. Your spirit, the invisible force, is of God. And so, I don't know, participating in daily prayer and just having this healthy relationship and being able to come to people and say, look, I'm in a spot. Like, I don't know if I believe in God or not or anything like that, but being open-minded. Science is showing it's going to have a positive impact in your life. So why is that not more about science rather than, well, we got this dirt, and I think this dirt's 1 billion years old, and that bone there and that cave dwelling drawing, that's it. God isn't real. Really? Then why does science say when I believe in God, attend church and participate in prayer?
Right.
I got psychological well-being. How did that get healthy?
Yep.
Anyways, I'm sorry. I'm on a tangent.
No, you're good. You're good.
I do love that you had me on the show. I am so thankful for you. And your
No,
podcast.
ma'am.
This has been fun. I've never done anything like this.
I know it's all good. I wish I had you on the platform when we did the topic on mind, body, and soul. Just it was powerful, and I wish I had you on that episode. But if your schedule could permit, ma'am, I would always like to have you back on the platform.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yes, I can't thank you enough, and the information you shared here has been powerful.
I hope so.
It is powerful.
No, I did. I worried it would be, useless.
No. Like I said, we're just here to, most of the time it's just freestyle, go on the flow, go with the flow, sorry. And just, relax, have a good time, have an hour I'll say once a month, just to connect with people and let people know that there's still hope out there, because people are going through a lot. There's a lot of hurt. My personal story for doing this thing is, like, I've been talking to people one-on-one on the side, but then I just realized many people are hurting and they're going through a lot, where if we could use this platform to share what we have in store for ourselves, to others out there, it may help somebody that's going through something, as far as, defining your purpose in life. Or I've done everything, it's not working. Guess what? It could work. Just keep pushing, talk to someone, keep on trying, and maybe, change the plan and go forward. So I do want to thank you so much for this wonderful time you spent with us. And if you have anything to share, please go ahead and continue to share. But if not, ma'am, I don't want to waste your time, but it's been so informative, and thank you so much. I appreciate you for today.
You are a blessing in my life today. And so thank you so much for inviting me on the platform. I really do pray that it reaches millions of people, and that they can kind of start to understand there really is a science that completely empirically supports that belief in God. I'll just reiterate it, right? Belief in God, attending church, and practicing prayer actually increase psychological well-being. So no matter how down and out you are, these three things can really improve your life. And so, I just pray that the strength of God continues to be with you and in you and everyone in the audience. I hope Christ walks in front of them, behind them, to the side, above, below, and in. And that when people think of any of us, that they hear Christ's voice, that they look at us with Christ's eyes.
Right.
And that they pray for us with Christ's words. So just amen. And thank you so much. What a blessing. And it was a wonderful experience. Thank you for having me. I would love to be on the platform again, but only if you truly, truly wanted me.
No, true. You'll be back, ma'am. I can promise you that you'll be back. And before you go, my brother here in Millington, Louis Reyes, he said, "Thank you, doctor. Wish you were here in Memphis." because there are a lot of people. There are a lot of hurt people out here. So
Oh.
yes, yes,
Well,
yes,
maybe, just share this.
right,
If people share this, then they had an hour with a group.
right,
It's sometimes that's more powerful than just one psychologist.
true,
You know,
true.
and we got to talk it back and forth. I think that can in itself. So please share it with everybody in Memphis.
Right. Thank you.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Doc.
God bless.
All right. All right. I'll talk to you later, Doc. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
You
Thank
can
you.
put me back in the waiting room.
Yes, I'll put you back in the waiting room.
Okay.
All right. Thank you everyone for listening. It's been a powerful session. And just to reiterate that the reason why we started off this episode with our relationship with God or our spirituality is just because we want to make sure that we understand that every healthy relationship is built on, the morals, the values, the principles that we adopt or establish from our relationship with God. As I was getting ready for this, topic, I was doing some research, and there's a couple of data out there. You can go look for it yourself. There's a constant increase in the amount of believers or people that believe in some kind of a higher power. There's a decline in people that believe in their spirituality, God, and all that stuff. And the stats are out there. It's going up more and more as time goes on. People keep on believing that there's no God, and God is not important, or the spirituality is not important. But we have clinical psychologists and we have data to prove that our relationship with God is very powerful, and this is going to just help us become better parents, become better friends, become better co-workers, become better husbands and spouse, better siblings whatsoever. So it's been an honor to have you on the platform. Louis, thank you for tuning in. Marco Million, thank you so much for tuning in. Prudence Azet, thank you so much for tuning in. My brother Ambe, thank you for tuning in. And if I didn't mention your name, thank you so much. And our next episode will be on May the 18th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we'll be talking about friendship. So please continue to share, like, and drop a comment. Let us know what we're doing, good or bad, so that way we can work on certain things on the platform. So thank you so much. It's been an honor, and y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.